Yeah, thanks everyone. If I end up getting a little bit laggy on my end, I apologize. I'll change my audio around, but I really appreciate the time and having me on. Thanks to ACOM for letting me join and show you guys a little bit about EMP. Um, as just going through the agenda quickly, and then we'll do some introductions. Today we're going to be, of course, showing ourselves and showing you guys a little bit about what EMP can do for you. Is of course what the title is. We'll go into a little bit about ACOM, the colleges that are already using EMP in some of our services, and how you might use that to benefit what you're doing today, and especially during this kind of digital time. We'll be going through some marketing trends, maybe what's effective, and then of course some Q&A discussion, next steps of sorts, what we can do. So we'll start off with some introductions. Aaron, I don't know if we really need to introduce you, but do you want to go first, and then I could jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone knows who I am. Thank you, Connor, for being here today. But as far as how I kind of can be integrated into this presentation, I do a lot of the build out in EMP with Jessica as my sidekick to make sure that all of our email marketing campaigns are working. And I'll get into that a little bit with Connor. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And again, like I said, my name's Connor Clerk, and I'm actually a strategic partnership consultant here at Liaison. Work really closely with the enrollment marketing wing of the company. You guys are probably familiar with Weve, a lot of the things we do on that front. In our Poughkeepsie, New York office, that's actually where I'm based out of. We do all of the enrollment marketing for colleges and universities like yourself, a lot of osteopathic medicine, to everything from medical to small Christian colleges, to be honest. So it kind of ranges, but we'll go into it a little bit further. But I've been with the company now for about 5 years. Some of you actually may have worked with me in the past when you onboarded onto EMP, or maybe have worked with us on some of the marketing campaigns we ran for you. I started here working on the training team, onboarding team, where is a big part of what EMP is part of the services, where we would pretty much integrate you and get tailoring the software to your needs. And then more recently, working with ACOM, other institutions, to really help on their marketing side, getting them set up, and how they use EMP for that is what we'll go into today, and especially the schools like yourself. But we'll jump right in. I want to just go through the transitions here. First off, what is EMP, right? The Enrollment Marketing Platform. If that wasn't, if you haven't heard that term before, it's called the Enrollment Marketing Platform. And I really want to start off of not really what it is, but what's the purpose of it. I think that's the big thing. And I'll kind of jump into, you might have heard this before, but kind of the 4 pillars that we look for is, first off, that immediacy, you would call it. So of course, when it comes to setting up a CRM or marketing platform, and what EMP is, you want things to work efficiently. Like, you don't want to send your blast communications. A lot of the times you want things to work in your sleep, we call them. So when it comes to EMP, you have to be immediate. When it comes to marketing, when it comes to recruitment, has to be immediate. We'll go into a little bit further, but like we like to say on our end is, when you're getting something especially for students in the Gen Z era and even Gen X, and sometimes we're looking at adult students, we're used to getting things at such an immediate pace. We can go on to something, request information for it. We can type in a show on Netflix and get information immediately. We try to do the same thing. We want to make sure when someone wants something, when they maybe request information, we give it to them pretty much automatically, and maybe it's available, right? The next thing is going to be relevant to people, right? We kind of assume that marketing is this broad thing that we can just blast out communications, or send out a print piece, or do a big ad buy for some organization. Can't do that, right? We want things to be relevant to students, especially in these times. When it comes to especially communications, you want to make sure that they're relevant to the students, they're relevant to everyone that you're communicating with, whether that's alumni, whether that's counselors, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that they're not going to open that email or look at that mailer. They're not going to click on that ad unless it seems like something they're interested in. And the way to know that is from some of the back end purposes of what EMP is. Next is going to be automated, right? I mentioned before, it should work in your sleep, but what about when you're trying to be personalized at the same time? You're clicking on a form, or maybe you're looking to set up a big campaign. I know with osteopathic schools, right, when it comes to the College of Osteopathic Medicine and other institutions in medical fields, not everyone's really heavily staffed, right? We don't have the resources we need at all times. You need something that's going to make sure that it goes out the door at 2 a.m., maybe at 11 a.m. if there's maybe a high turnover wherever you are. You need to make sure, regardless of the point, that it's automated at all times. And that's something that we offer, and what also Aaron will talk about soon, what we've done with some other institutions, is that a big part of this is just making your life smoother so you can focus on the things that make the most sense, right? And next, trackable. I think that comes with evidence in terms of having a platform or even just running campaigns. Part of it is just tracking that it's effective. When you go through and you're saying, hey, I'm sending out all these emails, I'm sending out text messages, I've worked with this agency on an ad buy, you need to make sure that you're getting an ROI. It's working. I can see that when I'm sending out an email, they're eventually going to matriculate, and it makes sense, right? So these are the 4 pillars, and I hope that makes sense. We'll go into it a little bit more in depth, but throughout this whole process and presentation, these are the 4 things to remember when we dig into the kind of ins and outs of it. But that's what the value is of the system. And what it is this is kind of where we're going into. It's really a complete admission solution. I don't want you guys to think of it as this is software only, right? This is marketing. This is going through and having communications written. You have relevant information from your digital media, from your emails going out of the system. It's more than that. The EMP, it's enrollment marketing. It's not just the software aspect of things. So when it comes to the complete admission solution, we're doing the software, but there's also a big component of it is we have that personalized copywriting, and we'll even talk further about that. But it starts with the inquiry generation on the screen here. Where are your leads coming from, right? There's a lot of different events you may be going to. There's virtual fairs. There's going to be, maybe you're doing a digital search campaign on keyword searches. Whatever that may be, you need to get inquiries somehow. And some of these may not be exactly the terminology you guys use in your institution, but that's the whole basis here. How are we doing those things? And you can see under the inquiry generation tab there, email targeting, right? So that's retargeting. That's going to be your digital ad buys. It's going to be, even if you're doing some print or you're doing some text messaging in whatever systems you're currently using, that's where that happens. And the lead sources, such as requalifying students, college fairs, you're looking at organic leads through your website, right? You're calling maybe, or some students are reaching out to you. Those are going to be your leads. And when you get those leads, the main point of it is you're creating a response to students. We're getting them into whatever system you're using, a current funnel. With EMP, at least, we're getting them into a database, and that's going to allow us to target them, right? That targeted relevant information. And that's where we get that response. So immediately when they inquire, maybe you bought MCAT lists and you sent them through the actual our platforms. They got that first response. Maybe they clicked on a form on your website, or you have a landing page set up. Maybe you're using a vendor right now doing this with a response on a form. But you can see how what happens is once we get those leads through a form, they're getting some kind of landing page at the end of the day. We're creating a response to them to keep them engaged or give them that next step after they've raised their hand. Maybe those things with EMP, at least, it's going to be visiting. So we know right now that that's not necessarily the case, right? People aren't able to go to campus, but that hasn't stopped our clients, and I'm assuming people on this call too, to really hone in on, you have your visitation, and you're making sure that you're going through and setting up something like a virtual fair or a virtual campus visit. That's part of what EMP is. Well, you can actually run all of your leads through our system and make sure that they're able to sign up, and you can also keep track of them through the platform as well. Okay. Next is going to be, of course, applying. At the end of the day, you're doing this so you can get leads, get them through the system, and then they can apply through a COMAS, right? That's what we really want them to do. When all of this stuff is happening, you can see underneath, there's all these campaigns that are possible through EMP. This is, again, not just the platform, but it's allowing you to do these things within the platform. And the whole goal is to get them accepted and create retention, right? We're not just focused on the top of the funnel, which I'll talk about in a second. We're focused on retention at the end of the day. When you go and get them to submit your supplemental applications, when you go and get them to you know, keep track of their application or invite them to interviews. That's part of this whole communication platform. We want to make sure that they're getting things at all stages of that. Okay. Going forward, you know, this is kind of what it is, but the options that you have with EMP, it ranges, I would say, and here's a couple options on here. When it comes to your communication platform, there's 2 options, and some of them might be better for different people. And I like to say that because we have clients that are using other platforms like a Salesforce, like a Slate, which is fine. They might not need a full-on CRM. They might need a marketing platform to run those communications that I mentioned before, something that's connecting to WebEmit and sending out of the system. So there's 2 options of what EMP physically is, and that's these 2, right? The marketing platform, and then there's a CRM plus marketing platform. And a lot of it's going to depend on your team, what your needs are potentially. What do you guys actually need out of the back end of the system? If you have 2 people in your office, you probably don't need a full-on back end, you know, complex software. Right? You don't need that stuff. We designed our platform to be easy for those smaller institutions, but also the big ones we need to. And that's why whatever you guys are doing on campus, we have something that's kind of flexible to use. That's why we have those 2 options here. And if we'd always answer questions about that. And what you're getting with these, obviously it differs, but the whole basis of it is we're not giving you really just a SaaS model platform, right? This is the powerful marketing technology that EMP offers. We're not giving you just that and saying, you know, go on and run with it, go and set it up. We have this awesome software, but we also have a lot of talent behind that team. And we have not only great copywriters, we have great designers. You also get a marketing consultant on your end that will help you through all of this, right? You're getting onboarded through our systems, but throughout the life of the contract, we're not just going to say, figure it out, watch some videos. We want to make sure you're going to be successful. And parts of that is with the software. That's also with some of the copywriting we're able to do on our end as well. So we have a different model here at Liaison EMP, and that's what I think makes us a little bit different than your typical software company that's selling a SaaS model product. So again, really kind of proud of that part of it. But I want to first go on and let Aaron talk a little bit and kind of go through what they're using EMP for, because it differs between schools, it differs between associations, right? We're doing things differently. And they've been doing it pretty effectively. They've been really involved into the back end of the system and using it for all their automated communications, right? Tracking that it's actually effective. And of course, that they're giving relevant communications to those students. So I want to turn it over to Aaron, and I'll actually drive the screen if you're not able to, Aaron. I apologize, but I'll kind of let you take it away here.
Perfect. Thanks, Connor. So most of our committee members have seen this if you joined our March event, but we did want to kind of highlight, you know, like Connor said, what we've done with EMP and what we are hoping to do in future cycles. And having been the director of admissions at one of our schools, I can speak to a little bit how you might change your buckets, or what I think some of the piles that you could put your contacts in, and how you might be able to use this a little better too. But what you're seeing on screen here is a couple of screenshots of our emails. But this past year, we did revamp our email campaigns to continue to engage our prospective students. We rebranded all of the messaging. Like Connor said, you can brand everything so that it all reflects Choose CO. And we've used our emails to highlight all of our marketing content, everything we have to sell about ACOM or about osteopathic medicine. So if you wanted to sell anything about your institution, you could do that with these emails, with this email content. So we use our blog posts, any video content that you may be building out, and other resources such as the Choose CO Explorer. If you want to go ahead and advance, Connor, as it currently stands, our team at ACOM has our contacts broken out into 4 different, I always call them buckets. Connor, you can correct me if you want to call them something different.
Yeah.
But we have them broken down into prospects, inquiries, in progress, and applicants. So if you're a prospect and you don't know anything about osteopathic medicine, you're not getting the same exact information as that applicant who's already applied and submitted their application. It's important to note that a student can progress through the 4 different buckets because it's all, like Connor has said, automated. So if you are an inquiry who suddenly begins an ACOMAS application you then you automatically change tiers and become an in-progress applicant. So your messaging automatically changes. So on our end, who are our prospects? They're all those pre-med students who have taken an MCAT. So we buy the MCAT names, we build them into our system, and we start teaching them about osteopathic medicine through that messaging. Who are inquiries? Those are the ones that have kind of raised a hand and already said, I know a little bit about osteopathic medicine, but I want to know more. So they've maybe come to one of our events, or perhaps they've already signed up for the Choose DO Explorer. Who are in-progress applicants? That's pretty self-explanatory, but that's someone who has started or opened an AACOMAS application. Our call to action in any email to them is, how can we help you finish your application? Here's information you need to know. So in response to COVID, we've been communicating with them about how to submit their transcripts and things of that nature. And then again, another self-explanatory bucket or tier are our applicants. So those are the ones who have already submitted or hit submit in their AACOMAS application. Our goal with those for our institutions is really retention. So we want them to quote unquote choose DO. So if they're given an opportunity to go to an MD institution or another osteopathic institution, we want them to continue to choose our schools and our medical education pathway. So the fun part that we get out of this is the data points that Connor talked through a little bit, but I think this is the fun part because we can really measure the success of our communications to them. If I were still the director of admissions at one of our institutions, I think our buckets might look a little different. Perhaps I have a bucket of advisors so that I can communicate with all of our advising partners and let them know about upcoming events. I can see who's opened them. I can see who's opted out from receiving information from us. So what you're seeing on the screen are the data points from last year's campaign. We can then use this data to drive how we change our future email or our future communication strategies to all of our constituents. So you're seeing on screen the prospective student and inquiry data. So on the far left, you'll see how many emails were sent. And then the light blue is showing how many individuals opened those emails, so we can see who's opening them. And then the dark blue really reflects who's clicking through. So who have we really enticed to then take another action, which in many cases is go to choosedo.org or maybe open the Explorer or open an application. That small red on the far right is showing how many have opted out from our messaging. So the click-through rates are an important metric for us because we use these for lead generation. If our prospective students are reading our emails, but they're failing to take the action that we want, aka go to Choose DO or advance to becoming an in-progress applicant, then we may have some work to do on our messaging. How can we change that? And our open rates are really important for brand awareness on the ACOM side of things. So when they open it, they're seeing Choose DO, they're understanding that that's coming from osteopathic medicine or ACOM, and it's really about building relationships. And I think we can go to the next one, which is really just the data on our other two buckets as it currently stands. But again, with these two, the in progress, we want them to open it, we want them to continue their application or understand the tools that we're offering them to finish their application. And then as an applicant, we want to keep them for you all, really. So if I were a director of admissions at one of our institutions now, I think, like I mentioned, I might have advisors that I want to communicate with. I might have our accepted students. I might have our deposited students who are getting different messaging that's more consistent. And then what I haven't shown here, Connor, this will be the last thing I mention, and then I'll give it back to you, is that outside of the nurture campaigns within EMP, we do a lot of blast campaigns. So Connor mentioned whether you have an event coming up and the fact that they can't get to your campus, maybe you're doing a virtual event. EMP is what ACOM uses to promote all of our events, whether they're in person or virtual. And so we can see who's opened the emails again, who's clicked through to register, and maybe who's opted out. And then we also can pivot and say, okay, that email didn't do as well. Let's try a different tactic, which we do often. So that's another piece. Or in response to COVID, we've been able to go in and say, all right, here's some more like timely information that they need right now that's not a part of the nurture campaign that runs on its own. So we've been able to use EMP for those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of the big announcements that you can make through EMP is like something you've been doing, especially because of things that are changing, right? We have a lot of, even our associations that are changing the way they're doing their marketing, and they have to send blasts to reschedule fairs during these times. Of course, you guys know, obviously all of our current planned events are all being rescheduled and whatnot. But I think it's great, Aaron, that you pointed out what we're doing from a school perspective, because I think that changes quite a bit. Definitely changes when it comes to doing your own enrollment marketing. We've worked with a couple I mentioned before, but we've also done some that actually are on this, and I'll show you. We have a couple here that, of course, some of you might be on the call today. Of course, LECOM and RCOM, Alabama, PCOM. They're actually using EMP right now, but we also have done a bunch of others with that are in more of that campaign basis with us. So more of a marketing firm. I like to say, we're kind of that software company that's also an ad agency, or an ad agency that just makes software, right? We do kind of both, which differentiates us. But they've taken advantage of the full-on EMP, and I'll showcase some of the things that they've done with us, at least a couple of them. But I think what's important through this is there's so many things you could do because it's connected to your application. But it first starts at that top of the funnel, and as you know, that's part of the main selling point in getting people, into your inquiry pool, into your top of the funnel communications, and getting things out. So I'll kind of show you how we typically outline it for our clients and what we really should be doing at the end of the day. As you can see here, I kind of outlined it. It's prospect lists, your school inquiries, maybe you've purchased NCAP names, people that have gone organically into your website. I mentioned that before. You can put those directly into EMP. They're automatically loaded in, or they can submit forms to get right there. Right. The next thing that EMP does really good is it gets those targeted, branded text messages, emails, and digital ads, and drives them right to the prospect to apply or to take action, right? To go to a form of some sort. And I lay this out because not only is this something that we like to do, but if you're working with another vendor currently, this is what you hypothetically should be doing, right? We want to make sure that you're going through with them and saying, I need students to go into a page, get something that's targeted to them, maybe through different channels, which we'll also talk about. But that's why I put your branded emails, your text messages, digital ads, right to your inquiries, prospects, and get them to that CAS application. The benefit of using EMP is we want to set everyone up at least with doing these things here, and not only just getting them to the CAS application to go and apply, because we can track that they've done that, but once they get to that application, part of what Aaron talked about as well is we're sending them emails to finish that application. We know, right, at that point with that application completion track, that's going to be emails and text messages. They can opt in directly on a COMAS, and we can then retarget them back to a COMAS to make sure that they're finishing that application. We know when those ads are effective too, because when they go and they click complete of their application, we can tie those efforts back with UTM parameters. Those of you that are marketers, right, we want to make sure we're tracking every single thing, and they can opt in directly on that application too, which is why text messaging has been huge with us. As you can imagine, emails, which we'll talk about, are not always the most effective at this current state. So we want to make sure we're at least doing this top of the funnel communications at the very least. And some of what our current clients are doing that are using both a COMAS and of course going through and using the EMP system is they're managing their inquiry pools just like this. They have these targeted emails that are specific to their names they've bought. I have a couple of examples from Alabama and RCOM here that are driving the student to either fill something out or apply. But if they're filling something out, maybe we'll drive them directly to their website and they'll be requested information, right? They're getting something after that. All of our schools are doing something like that where they're clicking a link on their website. We can track those organic leads, but we also may want to set up some kind of landing page. And maybe that's something that a vendor you're working with is doing, and something that we've done too, where we can give them a little bit more information and maybe get them to the next step, get them to inquire and raise their hand, and then we can communicate with them, like Aaron said, at that higher level or different perspective because they have raised their hand already. I think once they go ahead and request information, it depends on what you guys are doing, right? We know, especially with higher ed and a couple other industries, that websites aren't always fully up to speed. We've seen a lot of people recently that haven't necessarily had the most up to par websites, and we want to make sure that if that's not right yet, create a WordPress page, create a Wix page, and get that at least set up to drive students to create outside links after that. Give some information just for them to have everything in one place. And if your website's good, great. Use your website, put a form on there, but we want to make sure whatever you're doing, whatever situation you're in, you kind of have the resources or move forward there. All of our clients, and part of what makes EMP kind of unique is not only do ACOMAS members get discounts for joining EMP, but they're also getting some incentives as well to jump in. And part of that is maybe postcards, so personalized postcards for students. We know that, again, not only are we sending emails and text messages, which is great, but we need to differentiate what we're doing right now. We need to make sure that we're adding some other things that can get to students. And we're still actually running our full print house over in Poughkeepsie. We have a full-on print facility that we're doing, where we're creating brochures, we're creating postcards, and we have seen some of the osteopathic medicine colleges actually take advantage of that, as well as some of our current clients. But what's important is people are home right now, and I think it's a good opportunity to include with a print house you're working with. Get some pieces out there, because it might change the approach a little bit. People are getting a lot of email today, and maybe not enough of traditional mail. Regardless of what we're doing, though, I think we have I showed you some emails that were from lists. We have some postcards that maybe have a link on them, or going to your website. We're going to be having some kind of forms on there. We mentioned what Alabama is doing, as well as ARCOM. And we have our forms on those websites to make sure that if they're just going there and just raising their hand, they're getting something, right? You can say, I'm interested in this school. I want to make sure that I'm telling you that, so this can funnel information. Once they fill this form out, they're getting some information. You may also have events on these current sites as well. We have forms that are able to be kind of prioritized by these calendars, as you can see, and a student can go to these forms, click which days they want to register, and that can funnel them into sign-up reminders. Once the actual event takes place, they'll get a thank you, or they'll get, sorry we missed you, because it's all going to be automated at that point. Our clients like to use the system for kind of everything included, rather than using maybe multiple systems for multiple things. And then, of course, we're giving them a landing page. And some of these are what you call microsites. Some of them are actually WordPress sites that we would create. Again, just to make sure that they're getting something when they raise their hand, and also when they're getting information back from the application. Once they have abandoned it for a long time, we'd call it app abandonment. We're also here making sure that we can change this site over time. You can see on the screen, and I'll actually show you a little bit about this, is when the student is at certain stages of that funnel, we want things to change and be more personalized, because it's not going to be that streamlined static process. So once the student gets to a site or a landing page like that, we want to make sure that they're getting something else. We mentioned if they're at that point, get them to apply. After they're applying is when other things should kick in. And I think Aaron mentioned it a bunch of times, right? We want something for retention. And we would call them retention campaigns. You might call them, applicant nurtures. I just kind of have a couple quick examples. I'm not going to go through a larger thing, but what you can see here is after that application takes place, you should be driving them back to that application with every channel you have, but also on that applicant drip campaign, keep them engaged. A lot of our schools are using it to drive them to a supplemental app. We're also inviting them to interviews. We're also just keeping them engaged, making sure that they're getting something at all times, which is, I think, is really important here. We want to make sure that after they're admitted, you keep on the gas there, right? We have something that they're getting. I don't think it's a secret, but we found that most people that reach out to the students first, they're actually the first ones, the first choice at many times, right? Once they get that first response, they feel more wanted. We like to tell the story, and we have a couple clients that have reached out to us. We work with colleges of different medical professions, but Johns Hopkins and Harvard. We had some examples where students that actually went to the site and said, I'm interested, got a email, got a phone call, and then applied, kept, got a phone call to say, congratulations, you're admitted, or, but it would happen quickly, or they had notifications. They chose schools that were maybe of lesser status because they felt more wanted to go there. And that's kind of where this all comes into play, where we want to make sure that we're there for them at all times, but we're also giving them something right away, and keeping them kind of engaged. If they don't feel wanted, they might go on and say, hey, I'll go somewhere else, right? Regardless of what you're seeing here, though, I think through a couple things out, you have different campaigns you can do, application drip, interviews, right? A search campaign, your inquiry nurture. I think what's important is how you're doing those things. And that's where I mentioned a bunch of times, multi-channel, right? We want to make sure we're using multi-channel communications. If you're just sending emails, it's going to be tough. Deliverability is tough right now as well. Just getting to inboxes can be a problem, but also them reading them is a whole different story, right? If we're just out there sending mail, some people aren't going to be around, right? We want to make sure we're using more things. That digital marketing is essential right now, and with all these things together, we're seeing the statistics. We've run our own A/B on all this. We've seen it on other sites as well, where schools are getting a 300% increased return on investment because of using multiple channels. They're getting 24% increases in conversion, right? They're getting 15% increase when you add one more channel. So if you're just doing email, add text messaging. If you're just doing email, add an ad campaign. And then of course, 5 channels, which is a lot. That's definitely going to outperform everything. But again, depends on what your resources are, depends on who your students are too. This is in the grad market, this study took place. So in some cases, in the medical professions, it could vary a little bit. But the whole basis is you want to make sure you have to be doing at least an ad campaign. You have to be doing some email. And if you can do text message because you have access to CAS, you might as well do it. It makes no sense not to at this point. And it's going to increase your chances of getting those students. But because even when you use all these things together, I think what's important to realize is you need to have a marketing strategy involved. And for those of you on the line that are marketers and you kind of have a real good strategy, I think you guys know a lot of this stuff, but it's important to realize, what's your voice, what's your tone, and this all becomes more of brands, right? When you come to the point of getting students to recognize you, you need to grow your brand at first. If those of you that are smaller schools on the line, need to make sure that you have a voice, you have a brand that you're following at all times, and then you have a tone, right? You kind of stay the same way at all times. I think a lot of people get out of the method of higher education. It's obviously its own thing, but it's also, they don't think of it like a business in terms of your, you need to have a brand identity at the end of the day. And I think we try to come in with that perspective sometimes and say, what's your selling points? What are some things that you have challenges with? And let's focus on those, and let's recruit the students that really want to go there. Let's recruit the students that are really meant for you. And with some of the analytics that we have, with some of the actual trackability and relevancy that we can generate, you can have that voice and make sure that you're talking to people in the right way. I think it's important to make sure that you have a story at the end of the day. We have so many clients that came to us and said, I need a story to tell, right? When they're getting an email, are they getting something that says, who are your typical student base? What would I look like on your campus? What would I look like doing research? And that's when we came together at Liaison and said we need to have our copywriters really focus on storytelling. That's the trend right now in general. You look at all of major companies and what generates, we call emotional momentum, or just getting students engaged or getting people engaged in general. It's that story. They want to relate to something at the end of the day, and making sure that stays consistent through everything is going to be important. A couple other things that we try to do at all times, and something that I advise everyone to follow, is when you have marketing campaigns go out, make sure it's above the fold, right? We like to say this term, but it's kind of obvious. When you send an email out, when you have a web page being developed, if you have a digital ad campaign that has all these things, we want to make sure that you have your content above. Once a student clicks on something, they're going to see those things. And if they're not interested in the above the fold method, and they have to scroll, your chances of getting them to actually convert or view, that's where it's going to be a problem. I think video is a big thing now, and again, I think it's lesser. It's been around for a while, of course, where people are using video more, but in higher ed, it's been a little bit down the line. I think we've seen a lot of people that are investing more in video now. They're hiring videographers to create content for them, which is awesome. But we need more of that. I think we need more video. We need more storytelling. We need more testimonials, and all of that should be front and center. We should also have design and your marketing campaign revolved around accessibility too, right? When you go to a site, there should be able to be ads there, and that's a little bit down the line, more of a marketing technical piece, but that's kind of what comes with EMP, right? I like to say all this stuff because we're not just doing a great software deal here where you're going through and able to just automate everything out of your web event, which is great. I think having your processes in place and automate and make sure that's relevant is one thing, but also making sure that there's a strategy part of this, and that comes with what the enrollment marketing team at Liaison can help you out with, and that's part of what we're seeing here. And I think it all revolves around kind of where we are right now. And I mentioned this before, but this is just some numbers just out there. This is actually 2020, and I think these numbers are probably greater right now. At the end of the day, we have so many emails going out. You can see there's quite a bit, quite shocking, every minute. I think for those of you, that have been probably hammered with marketing from other vendors right now, I think that's probably been happening a lot. You've probably been getting e-visit software, right? And you've been getting communications for online classes, and you're getting a lot right now. But you're also getting all these other ads, and you can see just on, and this is just every platform, when it comes to Snapchat and Google and Facebook, and a lot of you are doing ad buying. That's how many people are getting, and you're bidding against all of those things. So that's why when if you're competing with a company that's gigantic or a school that's gigantic on that ad or on that email, right, that's potentially not going to be seen by anyone. That's why your story, that's why your brand and what your strategy is so important, because it's going to be that much harder to get in front of a student and get them to do something. So that's what we say, and that's why we want it to be compelling, but we also want it to be functional, I think is what we say. But I want to just take a minute, and I want to go through the actual platform itself for a second, not really on the back end, but some of the front ends. And I've wanted to show you a little bit about some of the clients I showed before, Arcom and Alabama, what they're doing on that front and how it can relate to you, because I think it is important to just get a visual of it. But we won't go through anything extensive, but I'm just going to minimize my screen really quickly and share. And I think you guys should all be able to see that. But when it comes to what we're doing on our end, right, we have those forms we talked about. This is like something that it would look like. We have those forms where a student can go and submit those, and you can really customize these to make it your own. I'll zoom in a little bit if that isn't clear. And we want to make sure that whatever your method is, whatever you're doing, these are going to be questions that are going to help you identify students just at that beginning of the funnel. We have our email, our address information, and we're asking here, what is how did you hear about us at the end of the day? We also have the ability to create other pages that may not be so static. We can also create things. And I want to show you an example from some Mayo Clinic who we work with. This is something a little bit different where it's just a basic page, and I'll actually refresh my page. It looks like it got a little bit wonky on me, I'm sorry. Where it's the same concept here. We have a form on here. We also have some statistics. We have some programs that they're interested in, right? We have all these things that we're doing. We're just giving them a little bit more. And if I like to show you these things, because if there's companies that you're working with currently that are doing these for you, just make sure that they're doing these things at the end of the day. But regardless of what kind of page you have set up, send them somewhere else. Have a website that's being developed to the point of it's ready for students to take that next step at all times. You're driving them to a page where they can go and learn enough to get to apply, to enroll, to matriculate, to deposit. And that's what we had set up with the clients that are using EMP right now. And I'm using Alabama as that example, and I showed you this, where they actually wanted to go through and have just some basic information, but enough to just say, let me know a little bit more about you, refer a friend, get us some, obviously helps to get some more contacts and prospective students. But, we mentioned that we can have this all set up where if you have a strong social media, you can have your social media directly on these. You can have a video on here. You can opt into text messaging at all times. This is more of a vehicle if you wanted to use EMP. You're going to be your microsites where it's something that is going to help you just nudge them along, I think. And after they submit that form, you got to remember, every email is going to be automated, it's going to be triggered, and this can be based off so many different things. Once they go ahead and apply, you can see how it's changing for what Alabama put together. They had some checklists. They have a link to their supplemental application, which I know a lot of you guys are doing. They're putting their supplemental application on these forms. And they actually have, I know what a lot of us do, their local statuses in Weve, where it says once they hit that local status of supplemental application, right, they're going to be getting an email. They're going to be driven to this page. They have to go and submit that supplemental application. And you can see on the right-hand side here under this application checklist, we're able to see that they've submitted the COMAS application. This is actually an applicant, but there's other things on that supplemental application that we need to require. So the student can go click on that tab, and they'll be directed right to here. They'll be getting a password, and then they'll be going through and filling that information out. So there's a couple things here that you will see, but whatever you need to ask, we can do that. And there's some essay questions and things like that. And there's also fee collections through the system. But aside from just the transactional information and making sure they're keeping track, I like to show this stuff because when you can see as they go through the progress and they did submit that supplemental application, you can see now it's all filled out and they're farther along that timeline. And I think that's important for you guys too. If you have something where you can direct students to say, check this stuff off, if it's not, even if it's not automated by Weve, EMP, what we're lucky to do is we can tie it all together that says when things are completed on the application, if they're missing something, let's have a checklist for them. Let's make sure everything's lined up so they can see their progress at all times. And then again, once they hit this and they submit the application, they're funneled into that retention campaign I mentioned. They're getting something at all stages of the funnel to make sure that they're staying engaged, they're staying interested at the end of the day. But it doesn't have to be so cut and dry, I like to say. We don't have to have this. And I know when it comes to osteopathic medicine, we're not, a lot of this is going to be functional stuff, but we want to make it a little bit fun too. We want to show research. We want to show things that they can do. Right now, what is going to be the incentive for them to come and study there, right? We want to make sure that there's other things there besides just going through the funnel and submitting an application. We want to incentivize them in some ways. And I think I can even show you an example from Marcom. They've done it in the same exact way. It's a little bit of a different layout where they have some checklists on their application, but they're also hosting their secondary app on here. And there's actually some different, I would say, questions. Obviously, you guys know there's definitely different requirements based on the institution, but however you want to set it up, we have that ability to do so, and it's all going to be tracked in our system. It's all going to be sending other communications. And once they do go ahead and submit, right, we have something for matriculation, right? Once it's official, you can see Emily here. You belong to the class of 2024, and we're happy about that. And we want to give them other next steps and things to do, checking their heading and depositing, but checking their status. So I wanted to show you these examples because it's not only about just creating a marketing funnel, creating automation on the back end, but giving them something where they can go through the process and be successful in that manner. And we can do that in so many ways. These are all being tracked, of course, through Google as well, and through any other method, maybe medias or channels like Facebook and LinkedIn Business Manager. You're able to see if you have a great website and you have that designed. Well, we can also have it set up where you have your design of your website, but we're also having an opportunity for you guys to look at that 360 view. I like to show this to some people, and I think some people may have already seen it. I think Aaron's actually already seen it, where we're actually able to integrate our systems with Google Ads and Facebook. I mentioned a couple others. Not just to say we have all those things on the back end of EMP of analytical purposes, but you don't have to just stay inside the confines of what we have developed. You can go ahead and get third-party products and push them in and create dashboards, create things that are going to help your marketing team. Of course, at the end of the day, create something that's going to help you guys make sure you're getting an ROI on things. It goes back to that trackability that I said before. That's where this all comes into play, and you can see on these channels here that this is for Minnesota State University. Just what we're able to do, right? We're able to track where they are, where they're from, what are they interested in, some of the things that they can put together. And this is just what they want to see. I know you guys, you may want to see something different, and we want to make sure that if there's something here that we can do, you can do that. And it's not just with EMP, I should say. It's with even just marketing campaigns that you can do with us. If you want to run a digital ad campaign with the enrollment marketing team at Liaison, or if you want to do an email campaign, we want to help you do those things. So I know it's kind of a lot of information in terms of just marketing it as a whole. It can go on forever and ever. I want to make sure you guys are ready to do those things, and I also want to invite you to check out. I could show you quickly on my screen kind of the next steps here. And what I want you to do is go towards this link. You can see it's actually called marketsmarter.liaisonedu.com, and fill that in for yourself. It's actually going to be a link. We use EMP to actually go through the process and show you what it is we can do, almost like pretending like you're the student itself. So once you fill out that form, we'll send you the link if you don't fill it out already, and you can click on it. But once you fill it out, you'll be treated almost like a student. You'll get an inquiry nurture and the kind of examples of how that'll work. You can start a demo in there. You can go through and see how the checklists are working. So I like to show you guys that in case you haven't seen it already, and also that we're using this as a sales tool as well for just helping us out and creating that student experience that you want to create for your students right now. So I'll leave that up there. And I know we have probably about 8 minutes left. I want to make sure that we have some time for questions if there's been some questions. I'm not sure if Erin, if you have that, or if you have maybe Jessica, who's on the line as well, has that.
Yep. As of right now, I'm not seeing any questions, but if any of the attendees do have some, please feel free to either throw those in the Q&A box or the chat function, and we can also unmute you. So if you want to raise your hand, we can allow you to speak directly to Connor or our team at ACOM. While we wait for any questions, though, I just want to thank you, Connor, for your time and sharing with all of our attendees more about EMP and what they can do with it. I know that we love using EMP, and it's been awesome for garnering more applications.
Yeah.
And
again, if there's someone that
we do.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and if there's anyone that has questions just about what we can do from a marketing perspective, I like to just say that I think what people have, and maybe if you attended the Liaison User Conference, some people haven't really looked at us as, oh, we're a marketing agency. Well, we are. We do a lot of those things, and we've been really kind of ahead of the times on it because we've been focusing so far on just delivering great marketing campaigns, not just that software aspect of things. So I like to point that out, and if anyone has any questions, they could reach out to me directly, but fill this form out, and we'll also be in touch, of course. And I know people have had some success so far, and I want to make sure that we can serve more of you guys because, again, it's going to help you guys a lot. So. But yeah,
perfect.
Those questions.
And Connor, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but we did just get a question. It's, what would you say a good open rate and click-through rate for an email are, specifically in higher ed or for medical schools?
Yeah, and it depends on the type of email. I think when we're looking at those emails that are from the application itself, so what ACOM has set up, or if you guys were actually reaching out to a student that already submitted an application and left that application, it's going to be much higher. You're looking at maybe 40 to 50% sometimes on the open rate, which is quite high, but it's because they've already started the application. And the click-through rate, it could be about 8% of a campaign. If you're looking at a search campaign, it's going to be much, much lower. If you're buying MCAT names, you're going to be getting, and I have the exact statistics for you, but I know off the top of my head, I think they're around the 11 to 12% range of an open rate, and then a click-through rate can be maybe 3 to 4%, and that inquiry is going to be a little bit in the middle ground there. So if anyone has questions, I can send you actual industry standards from graduate and the health professions. We have that all logged from all the work we've done, but it will range depending on what you do. And of course, as you're getting farther with retention, those are just going to keep going up in terms of your open rates. But we have all those things. We even have the, if you're doing an ad campaign with agencies, again, or a vendor, we have the click-through rates of those ads too. So all that data is something we can offer you. Even just the simple subject line. There's what's a good subject line? How long should it be? We can give you what we think it should be. And I know based on what we've done, I think it's if you just say this is how long your subject line should be, like that should be like the number of characters. So it's actually that simple. But yeah, happy to answer questions about that.
Yeah, and I can speak to ACOM as far as like our open rates for the past cycle. I think our inquiry stage, we had an open rate of 28%, our prospects 28.4%, and then like Connor said, we saw a lot higher for those engaged groups as far as the in progress and the applicants. Our in progress was 44.36 open rate and 56% for the submitted applicants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's constantly changing, but yeah, I think during this time, I think we've seen actually an uptick in all of our emails because people are home more, and even the text messaging. I think they've been more interactive. The conversion rate's been higher. So all the variables are tough right now, but we're keeping track of, which is going to be interesting as a case study, is how much they've been changing since people have been home. But those are all things we're going to have in store right now, which is great. So I think in light of the situation.
Yeah. Connor, one question we just got is, are there any plans to develop an app instead of having the applicants use email or websites?
Develop so actually in the like a phone itself. So there is actually going to be more mobile functionality, I believe, in terms of what you can do in EMP. So if you have the ability to, I'm sure you might have know EMP already, where you have of course, just the Perl, the front end of it. But if we have something where students can actually log in physically, or are they talking about the back end or the front end? I'm sorry, I think I might have just missed that.
That's a great question.
Yeah. If it's the student, or is it going to be the actual like admissions counselor or recruiter? I think that would be something that we would want to focus on. But in terms of the back end of the platform, we're looking to do a lot more work mobile friendly, so that if you're on the road going to a college fair, it'll be easier for you guys to go in there and just look at off of this college fair, how many registrants do I have? How many people have communicated with me? Can I check the records so I can know when they come to my table a little bit about them, just to get the scoop? We're developing some more mobile-friendly, I guess, accessibility on the back end, because I know that has been something that some people have asked for in the past, because when you go on your phone, it's more of a long page view. So I'm assuming it was probably the back end.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was honestly an EMP or is it an ACOM question. So Leanne, our team does not currently have an app on our radar as far as communicating with our applicants goes, but we can certainly chat more about that offline. So in the interest of time, I just want to thank you again, Connor. And if you have further questions, we can follow up and make sure that Connor's contact information gets sent out, and then the form that he's provided is the best place to follow up.
Yeah. Go to learn more. And again, if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out at any time. So always happy to answer some questions, or just jump on a 15-minute call just to talk through what you're doing and what you're thinking. So I appreciate it. To ACOM, thanks for having me on and talking through a lot about marketing and, of course, the EMP platform. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, and thank you to all of our attendees. We will see most of you tomorrow at our expo, but otherwise have a great rest of your day, and we will chat soon.
Thanks, guys.